Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Jamie Owen. Welcome to the programme. Our top stories: one person has been killed and dozens of others injured as a truck crashes into a bus stop in Israel. The police are investigating whether it was a deliberate attack. Our other headlines: Iran's supreme leader says its country's military should now decide how to respond to the Israeli attack on Iran. The latest projections in Japan's general election suggest the ruling coalition has fallen short of securing a majority. And why a children's author says ancient myths could heal the modern world and build bridges between China and the West. One person has been killed and dozens of others injured after a truck crashed into a bus stop north of Tel Aviv. The emergency services say around 40 people were injured, some of them in a serious condition. Israeli police say the driver of the truck was shot at the scene, while the exact circumstances of the crash are being investigated. Our correspondent Jonathan Regev is in Tel Aviv.
We are 7 hours at the moment after the crash, and still there's no confirmation as to if this was a deliberate action, an attack, or some kind of an accident. Police and security forces in Israel have not determined that yet. Two factors have actually called this an attack. One is the Israeli public security minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, who called the driver a terrorist, saying, according to Ben-Gvir, this was a deliberate terror attack. The other factor is Hamas, which congratulated the driver on his heroic action, according to the way Hamas described it. But still, at this moment, it is unclear whether this was an accident or not. A lot of things on the ground point to a deliberate strike. This was a narrow stretch of road in which the truck suddenly sped up and hit a bus station which was full of people, soldiers as well. This is very close to military bases. Therefore, all things indicate that this was a deliberate attack. But the family of the driver, who is an Arab-Israeli citizen, claim that he had medical conditions which could have led to this situation. The facts on the ground, as you mentioned, one person was killed, some 40 others injured. The driver also was shot and killed on the scene. And of course, it comes on the back of a very tense days in all the other arenas. In Lebanon, on the Lebanon border, the war is ongoing. In Gaza, there's still an active front. Of course, we are just a day and a half or so after the attack in Iran. So very tense times, and whether this was a deliberate attack or not, it comes on the back of times in which tensions here are very high already.
Iran's supreme leader says its country's military officials should now decide how to respond to Friday's Israeli attack on Iran. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei also added that the strike should not be exaggerated nor downplayed. Our correspondent Ehsan Kavani reports now from Tehran.
The leader's comments are crucially important in such occasions, as he is the commander-in-chief of the country, and his decisions in critical moments like this must be obeyed in Iran. It is really hard to interpret his remarks, but it could be inferred from his comments that under the current circumstances, the country's interests matter the most, and a kind of flexibility can be shown by Iran. Of course, Iran's supreme leader is an intelligent person, and his remarks can be regarded as two-edged. He emphasized that Iran's power must be shown to Israel. However, he said the Iranian authorities are in charge of deciding the quality of Iran's show of power. Just like other countries, there are naturally hardliner and conservative politicians and media outlets who urge the government to go for the third missile attack against Israel by Iran this year. The foreign minister, Araqchi, said a few hours after the Saturday Israeli attack that the whole world had come to know Iran's missile power and deterrence capacity. In his latest remark on Sunday, Araghchi said Iran's right to respond is reserved and the country will respond to Israel at the right time. He once again emphasized that Iran is not seeking war, but at the same time, Iran never escapes a war.
Lebanon says at least 8 people have been killed and dozens injured in an Israeli strike on the city of Sidon. This comes after Israel told residents of 14 villages in Lebanon to evacuate immediately and move north. Hezbollah has also urged people in more than 24 towns in Israel to leave, claiming they have become legitimate targets. Well, Hezbollah has revealed that the group has felt the impact of the death of its leader a month ago, but that it's now rebuilding. Hassan Nasrallah was killed in a raid on Beirut by Israel, but says it wants to stop Hezbollah firing rockets across the border into its territory. Our correspondent Yasser Hakim reports.
It was a fateful day for Hezbollah when spiritual and long-term chief Hassan Nasrallah was killed by an air raid in the capital Beirut, and the assassination of its top figures by Israel are meant to dismantle the group. But in an exclusive interview with CGTN, Hezbollah's parliament leader tried to brush off reports of the group's near collapse.
No doubt there is a psychological impact. The resistance and the Lebanese people love the Secretary General. No doubt we lost some of our top leaders, but there is rebuilding in all the positions in the leadership from bottom to top. We are in the 3rd and 4th generations who now have the qualifications and ability to lead troops in battle, and this is what we see on the ground.
Indeed, Hezbollah's response has been unrelenting. Fighters continue to clash with Israeli ground forces in southern Lebanon, inflicting casualties on the IDF, while Hezbollah rockets and drones have continuously infiltrated Israel's strong air defense system and reached all the way to Tel Aviv, even targeting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's residence. Public opinion has been divided over the war in Lebanon, and this has weakened the popularity of Hezbollah in the streets and amongst the political powers. That's because the price of war is heavy. Israel has so far killed over 2,500 Lebanese people, destroyed neighborhoods around the country, including the capital Beirut, demolished villages in the south, and displaced more than 1.2 million people. That's about 20% of the Lebanese population. A majority, including Hezbollah's political allies, are calling for the Iran-backed group to lay down their arms.
I can tell them I don't accept your representative to be armed and point a gun at me. No political party has the right to arm itself and violate our constitution.
But there are still staunch Hezbollah supporters, even ones who've lost their homes in the war and now live in shelters.
The savage Israeli attacks everywhere are targeting us, the civilians, but still we support the resistance. Our villages have been destroyed. I can't go back. It's okay for the sake of resistance.
There are fears that both sides could clash, leading to a civil war.
So far, all political powers have shown restraint and patience in dealing with this issue. I fear the angry public opinion that can be pushed to the boiling point and clash in the streets, which would serve Israel's purpose to create chaos.
The US and Europe are also trying to mediate a ceasefire and map out a political transition in Lebanon without any Hezbollah presence, something most experts believe is unrealistic.
In spite of its latest weakness, Hezbollah remains one of the strongest and most organized political powers compared with its allies or opposition. You cannot dismiss Hezbollah from the scene. It has a strong base, the only representative of Shiites, a big sect in Lebanon, and it will focus on strengthening its hold inside Lebanon to make up for the losses in the war.
The latest events have proved to be a turning point for the Iran-backed group, but the next few weeks or months will determine if it remains resilient enough to withstand the pressure. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Beirut, Lebanon.
At least 45 people have reportedly been killed in the latest Israeli attacks on Gaza. The dead include 20 people at the Jabalia refugee camp, while 9 others died in a strike on a school sheltering displaced families in Gaza City. Our correspondent Rami Al-Makari reports now from Khan Yunis.
What happened yesterday and united up to this moment, various Israeli airstrikes on different parts of the Gaza Strip, including mainly Jabalia refugee camp, Beit Lahia, Mashru' and Beit Lahia town. Thousands of people from those areas have fled to the Beit Lahia town now, dozens of thousands. Israeli army forces have been redeploying and repositioning from the Kamal Udwan hospital. All the medical staff detained have been almost released except one orthopedic doctor. Actually, there was a major strike in Gaza City refugee camp of Al-Shata, where 6 people have been reportedly killed in a strike on a shelter school called Asma. There were other strikes in different other parts of the Gaza Strip, including Khan Yunis area. A home in Khan Yunis was hit by Israeli warplanes. Another strike hit Nusayrat refugee camp, and also bombardments in the refugee camp of Al-Bureij in the central Gaza Strip. What is being noted that these developments and this intensity comes against the backdrop of resumed negotiated or mediated peace negotiations, ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hamas in Qatar, starting from today.
You're watching CGTN. Still ahead. More than child's play, the children's author who says ancient myths could heal the modern world and build bridges between China and the West.
Ever wondered what's the difference between a bear and a bull market? Where are the cash cows? And who are the lame ducks? And what exactly are black swans, grey rhinos, and unicorn companies? Make sense of it all with Global Business, only on CGTN.
I think it should be more global cooperation.
I would like to hear more the voice of the developing countries.
Globalization has lifted more than 1 billion people out of poverty.
The great transition has to happen. It's a necessity.
Well, China and the United States are important powers in the world.
What unites us is much more than what divides us. And I believe China is committed to this agenda.
Join me, Juliet Mann, to set the agenda at these times every weekend on CGTN.
This week on Razor, saving the water bodies known as ghost or zombie ponds.
When you hold something like this, to some people it just looks like a pile of mud, but I see these seeds and I can see life coming back to the pond. And it's entirely driven by nature. You know, we just expose these seeds and nature does the rest.
Hello, welcome back. A reminder of our top stories. 1 person has been killed and dozens of others injured as a truck crashes into a bus stop in Israel. Police are investigating whether it was a deliberate attack. Our other headlines: Iran's supreme leader says its country's military should decide how to respond to the Israeli attack on Iran. The latest projections in Japan's general elections suggest the ruling coalition led by the Liberal Democratic Party has fallen short of securing a majority. It's expected that either the LDP or the main opposition party will now need to enter a power-sharing agreement to govern. Our correspondent Chris Gilbert reports.
NHK, the public broadcaster, has come out with some polls themselves showing that it is very close, and that may be because, you know, the number of people that we've been talking to today going in and out of this polling station have said the cost of living as the major issue here. Now, a lot of the polls and a lot of the, the reporting about this election leading up to it pointed to funding scandals that hit the LDP, And that certainly has had an effect, and it's certainly been a stain on the party and driven down the approval rating of the government over the last year. But scandal is nothing new to the LDP, and political scientists agree, and the people we've been speaking to have been saying that the thing that has really affected them is their energy bills, is their gas bills, is their grocery bills, and that is really fueling, on top of the bad look for the LDP that the scandal has brought, the public resentment and discontent against them. Exit polls from NHK are suggesting that the LDP are unlikely to retain their singular grasp on power. They are unlikely by themselves at this moment to have a single party majority. The magic number they need, over half the House, is 233 seats. But it's showing that the NHK exit polls are showing that at the moment, the LDP may have anywhere from 153 to 219 seats just by themselves.
Well, international election monitors say they found evidence of democratic backsliding in Georgia's parliamentary vote. The country's main opposition parties have refused to accept the result of Saturday's poll, which saw the ruling Georgian Dream Party return to power. They're widely seen as wanting to deepen ties with Russia, while the pro-Western opposition groups want the country to pivot towards the European Union. Bulgarians are voting in their 7th snap election in 4 years. The latest opinion poll suggests no single party will win a majority, with long and difficult power-sharing talks expected to follow. Bulgaria is the European Union's poorest member state, and years of political deadlock have slowed much-needed economic reforms. The former First Lady Michelle Obama has urged voters to protect the United States from what she calls the dangers of Donald Trump. This came during her first campaign appearance for Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris at a rally in the battleground state of Michigan. Meanwhile, Mr. Trump, also campaigning in Michigan, met Arab Americans and promised to regenerate the state's car industry. The mother of a 14-year-old boy who took his own life after interacting with an artificial intelligence-powered chatbot has begun legal action against its creators. American teenager Sewell Setzer shot himself after discussing his suicidal thoughts with a character in an online role-playing game. His mother started legal action against the maker of the game, Character.ai, and its parent company, Google. Both deny any wrongdoing. Well, let's talk to the technology journalist, Chris Stokel-Walker. Chris, what is the significance of this legal action for the tech companies?
For those two tech companies involved, I think pretty significant. This is unfortunately not the first time that we've seen this. However, this is the first time that legal action has been lodged against companies that are alleged to have played a part in some way in encouraging someone to take their own life thanks to the advances of AI. Of course, the one thing that we do have to bear in mind, Jamie, is this is in the United States. Unfortunately, in the United States, there is a tendency to try and litigate these things through the court, which does not necessarily mean, A, that it will succeed, or B, that it will set a legal precedent. But certainly, I think I would be worried not just in terms of the idea of being caught in a court because of this, but also the risk, I suppose, of the court of public opinion. And this has really shocked an awful lot of people to learn that actually someone took their life in part through seemingly encouragement by this AI character.
You set up the differences between Europe regulation and US, perhaps lack of regulation, if we can call it that. What responsibility do tech companies have when it comes to children and teenagers?
Yeah, we're seeing this play out not just in terms of the role of AI, but also in terms of other tech platforms, ones which are perhaps a little bit more long-standing in our lives, such as Instagram and other platforms, Snapchat and others like it. There is an increasing, I suppose, awareness of the potential liability of these tech companies for some of the actions that their teenage users are taking, which is, I think, why those tech companies are starting to crack down on maybe those underage users, people who, sneak in under the age of 13, which is generally the limit for these users on these platforms, and start to use it in a way that harms their mental At the minute, there's not really all that much legislation around the world that does this. Certainly the UK is thinking of it, thanks to lots of lobbying by the deceased parents of a teenager here called Molly Russell, but also in Europe we're seeing stuff. But as you highlight, the US really not taking as much action at all because, of course, large numbers of these companies are from there and based there as well.
I mean, even with legislation, can you really regulate? Can you really edit?
Not really, and this is part of the challenge, particularly when it comes to AI, because in part, you don't really know what AI is going to do. It is, by definition, a black box, and it is reactive to the individual user, which is, I think, why it becomes so difficult for these big tech platforms. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't be doing something. Certainly they should be. They've got too big, many people believe, too fast, and not really taken action to try and mitigate the risks that occur. But when you combine fast-moving tech with the sort of foibles of individuals and their individual choices, you get a pretty potent mix that can cause some real issues, as we're seeing not just in the online world but the offline.
Chris, I'm sure we'll watch the legal proceedings in the United States with interest. For the moment, thank you. That's Chris Stoker-Walker, the technology journalist. A Chinese author says exploring ancient myths could help heal the modern world. Xiaobing Wang has written a children's book about legends that shaped his culture in the hope it might build bridges between China and the West. Our correspondent Michael Murillo reports.
Meet the man behind the myths. By day, Xiaobing Wang is a lecturer teaching economics. By night, he writes books for children. Myths of China is full of tales that shaped the country's culture. Wang says it will show readers that China and the West share many of the same values.
It reflects human nature, our pursuit for happiness, our pursuit for freedom, for love. This is common. It's shared among Chinese people and many other people, and many of those stories reflects that.
The book offers some important lessons. There's the story of Pangu, the mythical creature who turned chaos into order. His story reminds us that life is all about balance. Then the tale of Nua, who repairs the sky. She saves the planet after a battle between the god of fire and the god of water. That battle sparks a series of natural disasters, a warning that nature is fragile. It's a message that matters today more than ever. But Wang says he's not trying to lecture young people. Above all, he wants them to find their own truth.
You cannot just tell them, do this, do that. No, the first thing is you love the story, you enjoy reading the story, or you enjoy your parents telling you the story, and then you feel your imagination has been broadened.
Myths of China is full of compelling characters. The mischievous Monkey King, Sun Wukong, the Jade Emperor, and the Queen Mother Shi Wangmu, a demon who became a goddess, and Chang'e, the immortal who discovered that life means little without love. These are ancient stories, still finding new audiences, and Wang is hoping they'll help different cultures to find common ground. Michael Murillo, CGTN, Oxford, UK.
Africa's only Shaolin temple in Lusaka is helping bring together Chinese and Zambian culture. Since its opening several years ago, it's provided a safe haven for dozens of young people undergoing training and has attracted thousands of visitors. Our correspondent Farai Mutka-Ioe reports.
Africa's only Shaolin temple is affiliated to a temple in China's Henan province, which has been in existence for over 1,500 years. The instructors here are drawing on that rich history and the global popularity of Shaolin martial arts to teach more than just Kung Fu.
So I think for us it's a good chance to share about our culture, or Chinese culture more to them. It's not only Kung Fu. Behind Kung Fu we have very great and Asian and Western Chinese cultures.
30 students attend classes at the temple where they adhere to a rigorous schedule, combining local academic classes and life skills like meditation.
Our class is very strict because we really want they can learn something. They are not coming for playing. They are not only coming for fun. They will learn some useful knowledge here and useful skills here, so we will be very strict.
One of the students is Leonard Mwale, who is using what he has learned here to dispel some common myths.
My community thinks that like when I start learning Kung Fu, like I can beat everyone there, so like they are not friendly. But as for me, it's not like about fighting. Kung Fu it's not about fighting. It's about to understand each other. I have learned a lot of things like how to connect the world through Kung Fu, like to understand each other with Kung Fu. Like we are coming with different cultures, but through Kung Fu we can connect each other, like make the world better.
The temple is located near a low-income neighborhood in Zambia's capital. By immersing themselves in the activities here, these youths have not only found an outlet for their energy, but are shielded from illicit activities that are prevalent in their communities.
I see it a good thing because they have no time like to go and find drugs out there, to go and do any bad things out there.
The temple has spread its influence beyond Zambia through a continental Kung Fu competition held last year, which attracted over 150 participants from 23 African nations. Farangwa Kutuya, CGTN.
And finally, a catwalk with a difference. Posh pooches, chic cats and radiant rabbits have been strutting their stuff at Shanghai's Pet Fashion Week. The furry fashionistas are showcasing 15 new product collections from various pet-related brands. The headlines again. One person has been killed and dozens of others injured as a truck crashes into a bus stop in Israel. The police are investigating whether it was a deliberate attack. Our other headlines, Iran's supreme leader says its country's military should now decide how to respond to the Israeli attack on Iran. And that is the world today. Thank you for watching. More news at the top of this hour. Coming up next, it's Razor. For now, from all of the news team in London, it's goodbye.